Good morning, good morning. I hope everyone is seeing me and this technology thing is gonna work for us. Okay, so today we'll be talking about climate change. First of all, happy World Environment Day to everyone who is watching me, and I can see Morgan is watching already. Ethel Akende Notulunawa is also watching. Welcome, guys. It's World Environment Day. We are commemorating World Environment Day 2020 under the theme biodiversity. So we are appreciating our biodiversity as the people. My name, of course, for those that may be seeing me for the first time, is Akufuna Muyunda. I've been working for the environment for a long time now and for young people. So I work as the youth development activist as well as environmental justice activist. So I've done most of my work promoting environmental justice. So currently, actually, I'm working with the African Climate Reality Project, an institution that is fully determined to fight the good cause for our environment. So today's live video, this is my first live video where I'm talking about climate change, and I found it very important for me to share my understanding with everyone else. And I think it is important for us to talk about this issue because it has become a critical issue. It's actually a global crisis. And one thing that I want everyone to know is people understand climate change from different perspectives. And my job today is simply to try and break down the concept into smaller chunks or consumable chunks that anyone else would understand. I know that many people usually they describe climate change from a very technical perspective, but today I want to simplify it so that anyone should be able to understand what is this climate change, how does it come about, and what is the role of mankind in combating the adverse impact of climate change. So I'll give you a little bit of some background that will enable us understand climate change in a deeper sense. So, but before I go into the details, I want us to be on the same page, and this is to say climate change is not what everyone thinks, especially when it comes to us in Zambia. Many people think climate change is about government, or probably it's about some scientists from somewhere. It doesn't apply to our individual selves. And what I want us to take away from this presentation today is, climate change is a part and parcel of our lives, and that we are the one responsible for the cause of climate change. And again, we are the ones who have the ability to address the crisis itself. So I am going to give you a little bit of my short story that I usually share with other guys when I'm talking about climate change. So I'll talk about the story of Adam and Eve, where everything started from for those who believe in Christ, and I'll explain to you how the world has evolved from that time in a very simplistic way, and also the industrial revolution, and also talking about how the Earth itself as a planet benefits from the energy from the sun in terms of light and also heat, and also how that actually translates or has brought about climate change itself. So before I actually start my presentation, I want to say hi to the people that have joined the presentation. I can see Lillian Mana, thanks for joining in, and also Yasmin, our coordinator for the African Climate Rights Project in South Africa. It's good to see you, Harry Mwanza, and also Hilary Ngide. Very good to see you, and it's inspiring to show that everyone is interested in this subject, and that's why we need to come together and unpack the knowledge and understanding on this subject, so that we can all reach out to our people wherever we are, so that we can also change our lifestyles and be ambassadors for goodwill. Okay, so we'll start. I have a presentation with me, but it is quite a big flip chart, so it won't be able to fit. I think we can see something like that, but definitely it won't fit here, but I'll be able to use other means to share the knowledge and understanding. Thanks, Nico. I see you. Yeah, Nico is our communication expert from the Africa Climate Reality Project. She's doing a lot of work to help us also as climate leaders in the region to share the message about climate change. It is a very, very important subject. It affects every spheres of our life. There's nothing you can talk about our livelihood as a people that has not been affected by climate change. Okay, so we can start. First of all, I talked to you about the Adam and Eve story. Usually, I like sharing this when I do my climate change presentations across the country, Zambia, and I'll start. I think it's very relevant to start from that point, so that we can be as basic as possible in sharing the message. Sorry about that. So, in the beginning, the Bible tells us that there was Adam and Eve, and it's quite interesting that we had two people and the entire planet for themselves. So all the trees, the waters, the clean air, animals, and so on and so forth for two people. So this is Adam and Eve and the entire planet Earth, okay, for themselves. But today when we read the statistics from the United Nations, we are told that actually the population is no longer Adam and Eve. The population has grown to billions from two people. Okay? So basically, the Adam and Eves had plenty of resources, plenty of food, plenty of water, clean water, and so on and so forth. But what about the current 7.6 billion people around the world? Okay? So this population increase, okay, means that there's been increase on the pressure on our resources. Okay, the same resources the Earth, possess are supposed to sustain the demands and the needs of the entire population, 7.6 billion. And something interesting to share with you is the population keeps increasing, and we are told that by come 2050, okay, the world population is expected to reach, okay, 9.8 billion. Ooh, it's quite a big number. So the question is, what are these people going to eat? Okay, we want to eat, and not just eating, but want to eat nice food. And not only eating nice food, we also want to dress nicely, and want to drive nice cars, expensive cars. Okay, we also want to sleep in very nice shelters, good homes. Sometimes people talk about things like air cons. People talk about a lot of nice things to consider when building the structures. Now imagine for a population that is billions, and they all have their needs to be met and to be sustained by the same resources we have in the environment. Okay, so where I'm coming from is I want us to understand that first of all, in the natural setup, the Earth biosphere system had the way in which it sustained itself. So I talked about the Earth being, a planet which also requires energy to sustain life on the planet. So when we say planet Earth has got, is able to support life, which includes our life, and the general biodiversity. Today is about diversity. There, the animals, the trees, the people, and so on and so forth. Sure. So the Earth receives its energy in terms of light from the sun, and also the Earth receives its energy in terms of heat from the sun. Remember, even our plants needs light to grow. We also need certain amount of heat to maintain life on the planet Earth itself. Including us as human beings, we also need vitamin D to sustain our livelihoods. So now the question is, what was the normal situation before? So the normal situation before was the sun. This is the sun, if I'm able to see properly. So this is the sun. So the sun, okay, and that's the Earth. And then this guy, if you're able to see, this represents the atmosphere. So the Earth's atmosphere is represented in the blue color of my writings there. Then also the sun, in terms of color, it's represented by red there. And then planet Earth is represented in terms of black. So now, what am I talking about here? So the Earth receives its energy in form of light and heat from the sun. So that is energy from the sun to the planet. In the natural setup, the Earth absorbs, the heat and light from the sun, and what it doesn't require, it will reflect back into the atmosphere. Okay? So it will reflect back into the atmosphere. So that light and energy, also light energy and also heat energy that has been reflected back into the atmosphere, it goes into the space. That is the natural setup before we came in with our own human activities that led to the increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Okay, so this is the natural setup. So anyone should understand this basic science, that the Earth receives its energy in form of light from the sun, in terms of heat from the sun, and it warms the Earth, and that means it enables the Earth to support life. The biodiversity we're talking about, life in the water, life on the land, so on and so forth, our own life at the end of the day. Okay, so the Earth also has the ability to reflect the heat and the light that you don't require. So that's why if you fly out into the space, you'll be able to see the planet Earth showing some kind of light. That is the reflection from the sun. Okay, so this is the normal things. This is how things should work normally. So now what happened after the Industrial Revolution? So Industrial Revolution, this is when we human beings transitioned to use of machinery in manufacturing our goods and services. Yeah, we used to have the time where we used to produce our goods or manufacture our goods and services manually. Now the Industrial Revolution came in where we introduced the use of machines. And these machines, of course, for them to run, they need energy. Just like the Earth also needs energy to support life. But also the machines also need energy to be able to perform and produce what we want them to produce. So now the demand for fuel to run these machines also came about. Okay? Yeah. So now what happened is, for us to produce, we have to burn fuel. So where does this fuel come from? So we have what we call the fossil fuels. Okay? We burn fossil fuel from the ground. Okay? Where there's a lot of carbon concentration. So when we burn that, that of course can be in form of what we call oil and many other examples, coal and so on and so forth. So when we burn coal, for example, to run our machines to produce our goods and services, what happens is we have a byproduct or a product of that, which is the carbon dioxide itself. So we have learned about greenhouse gases, and many of us have had different definitions of this from different perspectives, but I'll make it simple for you. So greenhouse gases are basically gases that have the ability to absorb and trap heat. That's all. Okay? The very simple definition is greenhouse gases are gases that have got the ability to absorb and trap heat. Okay? So when they are produced, in short, they can form a layer, and that layer is a very thick layer, which means if you emit any greenhouse gases, they go up in the atmosphere and form a layer. And once that layer is formed, it means that we go back to our sheet. It means that the usual light energy, heat energy from the sun that the Earth receives, when the Earth reflects this back into the space, instead of going back into the space like in the area diagram that I showed you, what happens now is the layer of greenhouse gases, I'll put a black layer there, the layer of greenhouse gases will trap that heat, okay, which means that heat will remain within the Earth's atmosphere. Okay? So again, I'll take you back to the area diagram. So in the natural setup, the Earth receives sunlight energy, heat energy from the sun, it absorbs it, and then the excess is reflected back into the space, and you can see the atmosphere is there, and the reflected heat and light is gone into the space, no problem, in the natural setup. So now we have We have burnt our fuels, the fossil fuels, the coal, the oils, and so on and so forth to run our vehicles, to run our machines, our aeroplanes, to produce our goods and services, running our manufacturing industries, extractive industries, our agriculture activities, and a lot of human activities that we are running today to support the demands of our increased population. Not only that, to support what we call good life. Because everyone says want to have a good life for us. We are demanding for roads, we are demanding for infrastructure development, we are demanding for good schools, good hospitals, good medicine, and medicine comes from the environment, the trees, the grass, and so on and so forth. They support us to produce what we want to produce. They serve as raw materials for anything that we produce as human beings. And now, to produce means to take away from the earth and make what you want to make from it. So now, when we do that, and when we use our fossil fuels to run our machines, to run our activities, that is what produces the greenhouse gases. Among the most popular of it all is carbon dioxide. We've got a number of other greenhouse gases, the methane, the sulfur oxide, and so on and so forth. But the very popular one is carbon dioxide. So that's what happens now. The layer of the greenhouse gases forms. You can see there, when it forms there, and according to my simple definition, greenhouse gases are gases that have got the ability to absorb and trap heat. So that heat which is reflected from the earth will be trapped here, completely trapped by the greenhouse gases, which means the more we continue to produce greenhouse gases from our human activities, from industry, manufacturing industries, and so on and so forth, the many other activities that we do, the thicker the layer becomes here. And the thicker the layer becomes here, the more heat is trapped and is maintained within the Earth's atmosphere. So now, what have we learned so far? What we have learned so far is the population of this planet has been growing over time at about 2.5% per annum. And actually it's expected to continue growing even more. That's what I've learned today. And then what we have also learned is, as the population grows, the demand for resources to support the life and livelihood of the population also goes up. We need more food today. We need more clean water today. We need more, forest today, because actually we are using the forest for many other different needs. Others use the forest to burn charcoal. I'll talk about that as well. So they can produce and sell. Others use the forest for many other reasons, beekeeping and so on and so forth. Yeah, we use the forest to produce our timber and many other activities that support our income generation. Yeah. So all those activities now, what I've learned here is, for them to run or for them to be sustained, we need energy. And where does that energy come from? Mainly our energy comes from the ground, which is the fossil fuels that we burn. Okay? We produce oil. Okay? We burn coal. Even charcoal itself is one example of fossil fuels. So when we burn fossil fuels, what we produce from fossil fuels is carbon dioxide, which is among the greenhouse gases that we have, and it's one of the main, or most prominent greenhouse gas per se. So again, what I've learned is, when we produce greenhouse gases, according to my simple definition, it is gases that have got the ability to absorb and trap heat. So when they are produced, they go up into the atmosphere and form a layer of gases. Okay? A layer of gases. So some of you have come across the term greenhouse effect. That's why it came from. That's why it came from. Because once it forms the layer of greenhouse gases there, then it traps whatever heat is emitted from the earth, and when it is trapped, it is maintained within the earth's atmosphere. So what happens now when the heat is trapped by the greenhouse gases? So what happens now is, the temperatures of the world begin to increase. The temperature of the world begins to increase. Okay, so that's what we call global warming. The temperatures of the world begin to increase. Why? Because of our human activities. We are producing and burning fossil fuels, which are producing greenhouse gases. Okay? Yes, We can argue it from a different point of view. Others say, no, yes, because as human beings we need to develop. Yes, people define development from different perspectives. So what is development? To produce more, eat away from the environment and destroy the environment. Then what next? We call it development. Yes, we can produce nice cars, nice machines, and so on and so forth to support and make life look interesting. Then next time, we have nothing again to take out from the environment because we would have destroyed the environment itself. So I'm not saying we should stop producing, no. We can continue producing, yes, there's no problem. But the message that we have, or that we are putting across is to do that sustainably. And there are a number of solutions that are, are available to enable us to sustain our development in the demands today, but also still be able to put in mind the demands of the next generation as well. And that's what we call sustainable development. Development that meets the needs of the current population, but also puts into consideration that of the generations to come. They also need these resources. Okay? So the funny thing is, as human beings, we have this thing of thinking in short terms, mostly, including myself. Sometimes I'm a victim of that. But I think when it comes to this, it is very important for us to think about the future as well. So if we continue taking away from the environment and sustainably, then what are we doing to ourselves? We are killing ourselves slowly. Okay? So according to the statistics, it is reported that 19 out of 19 hottest years that we have experienced as on the planet Earth itself, 19 hottest years, 18 of those have happened after 2001 or 2001, which means we are seeing the trend where the rise in the temperatures continues to go high even before the industrial revolution stages. Why? Because actually what is happening now is our continued use of fossil fuels itself, our continuous use of fossil fuels is what is leading us to the crisis that we have today. Okay? We continue to take away from the environment, produce, and we continue to use unsustainable energy sources like fossil fuels, which later on cause global warming. Okay? So, if we love ourselves, we should demonstrate that by loving our environment, by loving the source of our life, because that's why we take everything that we have today. That's why we take everything that we need to produce what we want as a people. Okay? So, to care for the environment is to care for our own selves. We are not doing the environment a favor. We are doing ourselves a favor. But of course, it is also very important to understand the concept itself, how climate change comes about. Okay? What I've explained to you has only taken us to a stage where we understand what global warming is, which is the concept that I explained earlier on. But also, for it to become climate change, it has to happen for a long period of time, about a decade and going forward. That's when we can define it as climate change. So for it to be defined climate change, there must be time involved. Okay? Just because today it's hot, I cannot say it's climate change. But if this continues to happen over a period of time, it becomes climate change. I'm trying to be as simplistic as possible in my own explanation today. Okay? So usually we say, climate change is for them. Who are them? It's us. Okay? So let's go deeper now. We talk about the cost of, carbon. Okay? But before I talk about the cost of carbon, I'll talk about our own carbon footprint as individuals. Now we understand that when we produce and use unstable source of fuel, we produce carbon dioxide, which is one of the greenhouse gases. But then how does you as an individual, you and me, also contribute to the production of greenhouse gases? even in our own homes, for example. Okay, so we need to also understand it from an individual perspective. Of course, let's not always think regionally or maybe globally, because that's why people get lost. Because once you start talking about climate change as a global crisis, most of us will want to detach ourselves from the subject, and we want to look at it as though it has nothing to do with us. It's for them. Who are them? Okay. The funny thing about climate change is it doesn't know boundaries. There's nothing like, okay, climate change, is for the people in Zimbabwe. Yeah, not in Zambia. No. Climate change is for the people in the United States, since they are the ones who actually even emitting more. Us in Africa, we are not emitting more. Africa, yes, of course, our average total emissions as a continent is about 4%, which appears to be so little. Yes, I agree. But here's the truth, and the truth is we are among the most vulnerable. Actually, we are the most vulnerable continent to the adverse impacts of climate change itself. So we have understood it from the perspective that the events that lead to the cause. But also there's also need to understand what happens when the climate crisis is here. Because now we are experiencing the crisis itself of climate change. What happens then? Okay? What happens? So it's very important to have answers to those questions. We need to understand, why is it difficult today to produce crops? Why is it difficult today to farm sustainably? Okay, why is it difficult today? Even for Zambia, for example, about 60 to 80% of our electricity is actually produced from hydro, and our hydro is entirely dependent on the rainfall. And previously, with our electric supply company reported that challenges to supply electricity because of the unsustainable rain patterns that we experienced recently. And then what happens? They say next year, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we'll only be having rain for maybe just once and not for a long time. And then that's not enough to enable us to produce our electricity. What will happen? It was now just that alone, that example alone. I remember even in 2015 when we had a very serious power cuts, load shedding in the country as a result of low rainfall patterns experienced. We had a very serious disaster. Small businesses got affected. People lost jobs. I remember the mines reported about 4,000 people that were sent home because they could not sustainably produce. And therefore they cannot sustain people on jobs. What are they going to pay them? They're not producing enough. They need more energy to produce, and that energy is nowhere. And we're not able to power our mining, to power our small-scale businesses, our medium enterprises. What happens? So this is where now people get concerned. So people usually we don't get concerned with the events that leads to the cause. We always wait to react to events that happens after the crisis has taken place. Okay, that's why it's very difficult to understand the issue of climate change, because all of us want to look at it from the perspective of the effects, but not the events that leads to that, the cause. Okay, I should care about how much water I use to brush my teeth. Some of us, we open the tap, water running, just to brush teeth. How do you bath? How do you boil water? How do you heat your water? How much energy do you use to heat your water? That's not what I'm talking about in terms of carbon footprint. For me to look good like this, for me to look nice and handsome, okay, I had to apply some lotion. Where did that lotion come from? How was it produced? How much energy was used to produce? What kind of energy was used to produce those oils or those lotions? Okay. This jacket of mine looking nice, and I know it was not produced in Zambia. Where was it produced? Italy. Okay. Who produced it in Italy? What kind of energy they used to produce it? And how much, was emitted in terms of greenhouse gases for this jacket to move all the way from Italy to reach Zambia and Lusaka. That's my carbon footprint because I'm the one who needs it. So there's demand. So when demand is created, production also is increased so that we can meet the demand. Okay? How many containers travel every day from one place to another, and how much is emitted in terms of greenhouse gases? Because we know now greenhouse gases are the leading cause to the climate change that we're experiencing today. The increased temperature that we're experiencing today. And we know when temperatures are increased, we have some parts of this planet where we have the icebergs. The process called permafrost also takes place, producing some of the carbon, some of the greenhouse gases. And when the iceberg also melts, what happens to the sea level? It also rises. And when the sea level rises, what happens? So a lot of things are happening as a result of climate change now. Okay? From as simple as an ice melting to increasing the sea levels, now to affecting the weather patterns, to affecting the climatic conditions of our environment, to also affecting the rainfall patterns in some parts of the world, to also affecting the drought conditions that we're experiencing in some parts of the planet. So we have situations where some areas are experiencing more flood, some areas are experiencing more drought. When there's more drought, what happens? It's crisis. We can't produce food. We starve. And when hunger comes in, it kills us, all of us. So now we as a people want to react to hunger, forgetting what is leading to the cause of that hunger. How did it come about? How did drought come about? And that's what we need to understand. So every year we commemorate World Environment Day, but it has become like, it's a usual thing. But it must add meaning to our day-to-day lives as a people, to the decisions that we make as a people. How do we relate to the message according to the theme for each year's World Environment Day commemoration? And World Environment Day commemoration is not supposed to be a one-day thing. It should be a part and parcel of our lives. Okay? What are we doing to save our environment? What are we doing to save our forests? Okay? We had a very, very, very sad incident that happened in the Amazon. The fires, they burnt most of a huge chunk of the forest itself, Amazon forest. And that's one of our backbone in terms of carbon sink. Okay? So what is happening now is, in short, where we have reached now in this presentation is me and you, all of us who are listening here, we are no longer interested in seeing continual increase in greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, because we understand what that means. If there is continual increase in the emissions leading to the increased amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, mainly carbon dioxide, we know we are shooting ourselves in the leg. So since we don't want that, then what can we do to help? Okay? Take away carbon dioxide from the atmosphere so that we can maintain sustainable levels of carbon in the atmosphere. Of course, we still need it to some extent. We're not saying carbon dioxide is not needed at all completely. No, we need it to a certain extent. There are certain thresholds that are required to support life. Okay? And we know between you and me now that we are the reasons why climate change is happening. Therefore, it is our responsibility. It is your responsibility, it is my responsibility, it's the responsibility of every living human being to solve the climate crisis. So be part of the conversation. Don't sit comfortably in your home, don't sit comfortably in your office, in your car, thinking that climate change will spare you. No, climate change will spare no one if you don't do anything. That's why we need to come together and unite our voices and speak as a people and unite as a people to make right decisions that will save our environment, that will save our ecosystem, that will save our biodiversity. Because it's us who need this. Okay? it pains me to see how we unsustainably even cut down our trees. Very unsustainably. Mercilessly cutting down our trees. Yeah? We even celebrate to say, that one is a man. Have you seen how many trees are cut down? Look at how much charcoal is able to produce. We need to understand the value of trees. What is the value of trees? So that's why the theme for this is talking about biodiversity, and trees is part of our biodiversity. So biodiversity simply means different forms of life, and plants are a very good example, including animals, where we also belong as a people, Homo sapiens. So we need trees. Why do we need trees? Do we think trees are important? Yes, they're important. That's why we are cutting them down every day. But not only that, trees are not only important because we need them to produce timber, to produce our food, our firewood, and so on and so forth. But we also need trees because trees are actually the lungs of this planet. Trees are the lungs of this planet. Because it's only trees, okay, it's trees of course, and you have the oceans and so on and so forth, but trees mainly, it's trees that can eat away the carbon in our atmosphere. Trees, they eat carbon and they give us oxygen. In case we have forgotten the simple basic science from our high schools. So trees are important. Why are trees important? It's not because we want to get food from the tree in terms of fruits and maybe any other form of food. It's not because trees are important. That's because that's where we get our medicine from. Maybe that's where we can get our building materials from, the timber and so on and so forth. But trees are also important, mainly also because they eat carbon, which is our greatest enemy. So why should you and me save the trees? We need to save the trees because now trees, they don't only support life, which is eating out the carbon and giving us the oxygen. We need to breathe clean air every day, every second. Where does that come from? It's from the trees. We don't want carbon or increased levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. What helps us to take away some of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? It's the trees. It's the trees, yes. It's you and me. We should understand that we need trees ourselves, which are part of our biodiversity. Okay? We should stop complaining about the impacts of climate change. We should stop. And why I'm saying that is because it is us who caused it in the first place. So why complain? So now if me as a climate leader, I'm doing my part to share my message, what are you doing also? Please also help share the message. Participate in the campaigns for a better environment, campaigns for a better future for all. Okay? Participate. You don't have to have a job that pays you so that you can be able to talk for the environment. No, you can do something. Whatever you are, whatever kind of things you do, you can do something to help reduce the impacts of climate change. All of us, young people especially, we talk about the brighter future. We want to have a brighter future, a better world. What is a better world if we continue cutting down our trees, if we continue to produce greenhouse gases that are causing climate change? And climate change now is causing droughts, is killing our agriculture. Okay? And the statistics say that even the food crisis itself, by 2050, the maize yield is expected to reduce by 22%. And maize, is one of the main crops that we have to produce our food. Millets, groundnuts, all those, the yield is expected to reduce. Why? Because of climate change. Climate change. It's real. It's not a story. It's not It's not like a fictitious movie or something like that is happening. No, it's a real thing. It's happening every day. And right now, if you are cooking at home and you are using charcoal, know that you are already contributing to the emissions of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, because charcoal produces carbon. If you are an organization, or if you are a mining industry, or you are a company, a multinational company, and you are every day producing your goods and services using fossil fuels, know that you are also a responsible person for the cause of climate change. It's what we do that is causing climate change. And it shouldn't come out as if it's a surprise that, oh, how did we reach here? No. It shouldn't. It's what we do. If right now you are a funding institution and you are now funding or making a decision to fund fossil fuel companies or fossil fuel industries, know that you are also causing or responsible for the cause of climate change. The decisions that we make as a people, it shouldn't take us by surprise. It is what we do every day. As opposed to using sustainable sources of energy, if you are making a decision to use unsustainable sources of energy like fossil fuels, know that you are one of the people that are causing climate change. It's not a rocket science that we're talking about here. It's the things that we do, you and me. If you are deciding to use your private vehicle, you burn fuel to go to a job or to your office or to a town, when you can actually use public transport to save, know that you're also contributing to the emissions that are leading to climate change, because you are burning fossil fuel, producing carbon dioxide, producing greenhouse gases that are leading us to the climate change that we're talking about right now. It's the decision that we make every day. Some of us, we buy food, a lot of food, more than we need, and then we throw the rest out into the environment. That's wastage. And if you talk about landfills in Zambia, it's a big problem. Because landfills, actually, that's where methane is produced. Methane is one of the greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide, that are also leading to the cause of climate change. It's produced. So when we just throw our waste unnecessarily, it means that we are also victims or contributors to the cause of climate change. It's not rocket science. It's you and me making decisions. And in this case, unsustainable decisions that are leading us to the crisis of climate change. People are losing jobs today because of climate change. Poverty is increasing every day because of climate change. A lot of our communities are not having the capacity. They do not have the capacity to be resilient enough to the adverse impact of climate change. Just one flash flood destroys everything. Just one flash flood destroys everything. We saw what happened in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Malawi, even here in Zambia. In Lusaka here, just a flash flood, what it can do. We saw that ourselves. What are we still waiting for? What are we still waiting for? There's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of evidence everywhere, every day. But we still choose to ignore and say, it's not now. No, it's now. It is happening right now. Even right now as I'm talking to you, here in Zambia, we're experiencing unsustainable load shedding hours. There's a hunger because people are not able to run their business 6 to 6. their profits are not good enough to sustain them because of climate change. Our farmers are affected every year in, year out, because of climate change. Our crops are affected because when the climate changes, the habitat also affected, and that gives rise to new diseases as well. The new diseases come about and they eat on our crops. I think about last year, we experienced armyworms, which came from nowhere. Boom, armyworms came, and everyone was surprised. Where the armyworm comes from? Where are the armyworms coming from? We don't know. And they went and they came back, and they went and they came back. And we can't explain that. No, it's climate change. When the habitat becomes suitable for a certain species, it will come and live. Also, the opposite is true. Our tourism is also affected because certain animals could no longer live in a certain location because of drought and there's no water. So they will migrate. And that's why even as a human being, we have what we call climate refugees. People are moving from one place to another in search of greener pastures. Climate refugees. And climate change has got, actually, the climate change can affect our social stability. We experience social instability as well as a result of climate change. There's not enough food to feed everyone. So when the visitors come, some of you even say, they have come, they're going to finish my food. No, I can't even produce enough to sustain my family. I can't even produce enough to sustain my economic community, and so on and so forth. So these things are real, and they happen every day. Okay? I'll be winding up, and it's good that everyone is here and watching with me, and I'm happy that the interest levels are high. People want to understand climate change and how it happens, and actually how it affects us as a people. But what I want to also say is we need to join forces and do this together as a people. They speak for the environment. They save our forest, the lungs of our planet. Let's participate in the activities that point to saving our forests, saving our environment, and stopping climate change. It is possible. We have a lot of solutions. Solar is there. For example, solar, this is a free gift from God. Solar itself is a free gift from God. We can produce our energy from the sun to run our industries, to run our manufacturing industries, or to run our businesses, our agriculture, our health system, and so on and so forth. We can use solar. And we have a lot of players now on board who have come, even here in Zambia, doing a lot of solar projects. And we want to promote solar because renewable energy is what can only help us solve the climate crisis. We need to reduce the pressure on the environment. We need to reduce the pressure on the environment. And we need to make sustainable decisions. The government is also interested. Governments world over are also interested. That's why after the Paris Agreement, a lot of commitments were made by different world governments to commit to solving the climate crisis. We need to do our part as Zambia. We also need to help our government, and our government is also interested. And we want to not only talk about climate change, because I've done a lot of talking without action will not solve the climate crisis. What the climate crisis needs to be solved is action, and we need sustainable action. Okay? Stop using coal. Why are you using coal when we've got solar, which is free? Stop using the oils. The fossil fuel is not good for us. Stop cutting down trees, those trees that we cut every day. Stop cutting down trees. We have other alternatives of using forest resources without cutting down a tree entirely. There are a lot of innovations on board. Okay, so after this presentation, I'll be sharing some links in the message with you. We are actually, as the African Climate Reality Project, we are running some campaigns. So presently we have a campaign which we call Carbon Sink campaign. we want to raise the message about the need to sink the carbon into the ground. Let it remain there in the ground, because we don't want it in the atmosphere. Because when the carbon is left in the atmosphere, it is bringing us problems now. We have climate. We can't really live peacefully. Okay? So I'll share the link for the carbon sink campaign in the message. And then also we, as the African Climate Right Project, we have a petition that we are running, and this petition is aimed at saving the Congo forest. Congo forest is one of the most precious, cardinal, important forests that we have. It must be preserved. It must be preserved. It must be protected, because those are the lungs of our planet. If we can save a tree, then we can save lives. Every day, millions of people are dying because of climate change, from hunger, from indoor air pollution, even outdoor air pollution, every day. According to the World Health Organization, we are told that about 4 million people die every day because of indoor air pollution. And we need to stop this. Okay, so I think there's a question in the message. So I can see now a junior study is asking to say, how does it penetrate the first line from the sun, yet fails when it is hiring back? So it fails when hiring back because of the layer of greenhouse gas that has developed. So that the layer of greenhouse gases which has been developed. So again, I'll show you the picture. This layer of greenhouse gases, and from the simple definition that I shared earlier on, was greenhouse gases are basically gases that are able to trap and absorb heat. So when it is from the sun, it's able to penetrate. There's no problem. But when it is going back, it is trapped by the greenhouse gases. Okay? Because whatever the case, the earth needs the light and also the heat from the sun. Okay? But not everything. That's why it has got the ability to reflect back the heat and the light. But now what happens when there's thick layer of greenhouse gases is all over the place, then that is what traps the heat, leading to the increased temperatures of the world, and consequently leading to climate change. Okay. Any questions from anyone? If there's any question, please feel free to type it, then I can answer it. Lewis T. Duve is talking about population reduction activities. I don't know what he's trying to put across there, but in case someone wants to clarify something from what I shared earlier on when I was talking about population increase. In short, population increase is directly proportional to demand of resources from the environment, because you need to produce more to sustain the growing population every day. And that is actually what is leading to increase and sustainable production levels that we experience in the world today. So if you talk about the SDG goal number 12, which is talking about production and consumption. So sustainable production and consumption, that's what we're talking about, because we need to start sustainably produce and consume. Not only production itself, but also consumption itself. How do we consume? Do we consume sustainably or unsustainably? Julius Luaya is saying, raising good points. Indeed, it's time we got more proactive in protecting our environment. Yes, Mr. Julius, and you're one of the young people that have been highly dedicated in making sure that something is done to protect our environment, to save our environment, to save our forests. Yeah. So we want more young people to join the movement. And actually right now the Africa Climate Right Project is requesting for applications for whoever wants to join the movement. So there'll be an online training due to COVID. So I'll also share the link in the message so that everyone can apply, and then we can increase the voice for climate justice across the world. That's what we want to see. Mudi Muya, thank you. He's saying, add me to your WhatsApp group. Okay, yeah, sure. I'll surely add you to the WhatsApp group. We need more voices on the climate change subject. It's a part of and parcel of our lives today, especially young people. I want you more to join in the movement. Yeah. So again, I'll share the campaign on the carbon sink and also the petition on the Congo forest in the message very soon. So Tinashe Wakapila, thank you. How do we continually sustain trees on mainland? It's a very good question. How do we continually sustain? First of all, the other way to ask this question is, how do we continually and sustain trees on mainland? So it's human activities. We produce, what do we need trees for? So we need to look at how we use trees and what for. So we cut down trees for charcoal, for example. What can we do to reduce demand of charcoal? Okay, we have a number of solutions like energy-saving boilers, or we have braziers that use twigs instead of charcoal. So you don't have to cut the entire tree, you just use twigs. Then also people cut down trees for business, to sustain their livelihoods. They want to make money. It's business. So if we introduce alternative business solutions like beekeeping, for example, fish farming, for example, and many other options that we have, we will be able to shift the focus of those people from cutting down trees to produce charcoal for business. They'll be now be able to make their own money even more from other sustainable, solutions that we have. I can see Ami Gilliam. Wow, thanks for watching. Ami Gilliam is our branch manager for the African Climate Reality Project, very dedicated to ensuring that the voice reaches out the masses, and the African youth voice also is heard. So please, let's join in the movement. So Yasmin, she's saying, what is a better world if we keep on cutting down trees? Absolutely. Why should we talk about a better world if we continue cutting down trees? Because what is a better world without trees? There's no such kind of thing like a better world. It's only a heroic world. Okay, Sibitwani. Okay, thank you. Namakao Miumbana, the future plus better world equals green trees. Yes, we need the trees. We need the trees. This is the best time we can talk about protecting them, because there's the increasing levels of unsustainable practice by human beings due to human needs. So we need to do that. Okay, who else is saying anything? Okay. So what is your, Martin Mushumba is asking to say, what is your position regarding the high cost of clean energy sources such as ZESCO hydropower that are triggering deforestation as the people resort to charcoal as an alternative source of energy? So of course, that's why I'm very much a promoter of solar energy as opposed to even hydro, because yes, hydro is very good. It's also a clean source of energy, but it's a question of sustainability. How sustainable is hydro in the first place? Yeah, and what guarantee do we have that it will always be there? Because the main dependent of hydropower generation is the rainfall, mainly when talking about Zambia itself. And for me, I wouldn't want to rely completely 100% on hydro. And why hydro is actually becoming even more expensive in Zambia is because it is becoming difficult to produce electricity from hydro due to the climatic challenges that have been expressed by ZESCO itself, but also put into consideration the demand itself. At the end of the day, the electric tariff, yes, they are quite high, on the high side. Of course, there's a claim that they are still cheapest in the region, but in terms of an average Zambian's ability to afford, yes, it's quite high. And that's why it is recommended that we switch to solar, because solar actually is free. Of course, there's a cost of buying the equipment or the solar product itself. We have a number of organizations in Africa and also in Zambia in particular that are prominent in distributing solar products across the country. We understand also that 90% of our households do not have access to grid electricity, so there's a huge demand also in the rural areas. And that's why switching to solar is very, very important. There are a lot of producers of solar products today on the market, and I would recommend that people switch to use of solar as opposed to depending entirely on ZESCO. But also, to answer your question, if you can't entirely switch completely from ZESCO, which is selling its electricity on a high rate, you can still use other alternatives. Like, for example, there's this solution that I came across here in Zambia. There's a company that I work with called Vitalite. They are distributing cooking solutions, and one of it was the pressure cooker. Of course, what other people call it pressure cooker, others call it food warmer, and so on and so forth. So this is a material that enables you to cook stuff like beans, which take long hours to cook in a few hours, but without using direct sources of energy. So, for example, if you're cooking beans using the food warmer, you just boil it for about 45 minutes on your electric stove or on your brazier, and then you remove it completely and put it in the food warmer. Then for just 3 hours, it will fully cook your beans, so without you consuming too much energy. So that will help you save your electricity units if you are using ZESCO. Okay. Then also, instead of using the ordinary bulbs, the 100 watts, 60 watts bulbs that consume too much energy, switch to use of energy saving bulbs, the LED bulbs. They use very little energy but still give you a substantial amount of lighting that you need. So those are simple decisions that you can make to help you reduce on the consumption of ZESCO units if you have that concern. Okay, I think I've had great time with you guys. It's time for action. We need to act for climate justice, and this is the responsibility of you and me. And I hope you found my time with you interesting and you took away something, 1 or 2 lessons from my presentation. I'll find time in the future also to come back and share more and more and more and more. But I want us all to join the movement. Please check the messages and look out for the campaign on us Carbon Sync, or Sync Our Carbon campaign that we are running as the African Climate Reality Project. It's for everyone. Please join that campaign, and also please sign the petition to save the Congo forest. We need now we understand we need the forest, we need the trees, all of us. We need to continue breathing clean air. We need clean water. We need clean sources of energy, and so on and so forth, to save us from the climate crisis. And the only way that will happen is when you and me make a decision to stand for the environment, to stand for climate justice, to stand for our trees. Let us save our trees, and by doing so, we'll save our own lives. Thank you so much for joining in, and we continue interacting in this forum and many other options that we have to interact and join in the movement to save our environment. Thank you so much, and see you again next time. Bye-bye.